to you from Central Florida. Going to be another warm day. We have Hebrews chapter 4 today. What a great chapter. Two really, really encouraging ideas for us to share together. So I'm going to read the first part of the chapter today, and next week I'm going to do just the last couple verses of the chapter. This part of this text, the writer has some of the most profound thoughts on Sabbath rest. And just want to start by reminding you that Jesus makes it clear that man was not made for the Sabbath. Sabbath was made for humanity. And if we get that backwards, we become legalistic in our faith. And so he's encouraging us to understand that there is a part of the way that we are created that really needs Sabbath, revels in Sabbath. And when we think Sabbath, we still get stuck in the legalistic concept of thinking that it's Saturday or Sunday, that it has certain rules attached to it, the do's and the don'ts of Sabbath. And the writer and Jesus himself tries to help us to understand that those things are human-made. They're not really about Sabbath. They're more about being in control. And so the writer here redefines, for those who think Sabbath is a certain day of the week or a certain set of rules, he redefines it in a way that is quite profound. So whenever he's talking about rest, R-E-S-T, he's talking about Sabbath. So here we go. This is verse 1 of Hebrews chapter 4. Therefore, since the promise of entering his rest still stands, let us be careful that none of you be found to have fallen short of it. For we also have had good news proclaimed to us, just as they did, but the message they heard was of no value to them, because they did not share the faith of those who obeyed. Now we who have believed enter that rest. And notice that that's a present tense. It's not a will enter. It's not a future tense. It's we enter that rest. Believers enter God's Sabbath rest. Just as God has said, so I declared on oath in my anger, they shall never rest, and yet his works have been finished since the creation of the world. For somewhere he has spoken about the seventh day in these words, on the seventh day God rested from all his works. And again, in the passage above, he says, they shall never enter my rest, talking about those who rebelled in the wilderness, not entering into the promised rest, the promised land of God. Therefore, since it still remains for some to enter that rest, there are some yet to be saved. And since those who formerly had the good news proclaimed to them did not go in because of their disobedience, God again set a certain day, calling it today, and it's in quotation marks with a capital T, which means pay attention, this is not what you think it is. This he did when a long time later he spoke through David, as in the passage already quoted, today if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. For if Joshua had given them rest, God would not have spoken later about another day. There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God, for anyone who enters God's rest also enters rest from their works, just as God did from his. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest, so that no one will perish by following their example of disobedience. And so the paradigm, what he's setting up is that belief, when I become a believer, it allows me to enter into Sabbath. This writer is not talking about Sabbath that's a particular day of the week. He's talking about Sabbath being today, capital T, which means yesterday, today, tomorrow, any day. All days are today. And so he says that this very day, this Tuesday in July, me living here in Central Florida, I am uh, I am entering into the rest, the Sabbath, this very day. And for him, Sabbath was a relationship of assurance where I know I would be in God's Sabbath, and I know that because I am in relationship with God, I am in such relationship with God that I understand that God has finished his creation work and he lives in the today. He lives in Sabbath. And so my desire is to enter into Sabbath with my Maker. And this is this relationship of assurance and understanding that God's work is completed and I am part of it and I've entered into it. It's very, very encouraging to know that at any moment in time, all I have to do is remember that today's Sabbath, and I have an opportunity to be in relationship with God anywhere, anytime, any day, and that relationship gives me rest. R-E-S-T, rest. I saw a funny, my daughter actually sent it to me, a very funny, like a cartoon that said that I am not a night owl or a morning dove. I am some sort of permanently exhausted pigeon. Makes me laugh, but and I think a lot of us we live our lives like that. We don't really know what it means to be at rest with God. To to be at rest means, for me, it means that there's no wearisome toil in my life. There's no restlessness, uh, no worrying about what's next, no concern for uh, the troubles that might otherwise own me. They are all in the hands of God, and I can just rest. The best example I could think of, I was trying to think of an example to share with you as I was getting ready for this morning. When we were when we were younger, Brenda and I, we would go on long drives, 12, 14-hour drives for vacation. And Brenda was always the designated long distance driver. I I was a short distance driver because that's about my attention span. But Brenda, she just haul at it and go. And one of the things, and you'll probably know this about me already, I'm not a very good passenger because I don't stay awake. I I fall asleep, but that's not true for everyone. I don't fall asleep for everyone, but I did fall asleep when Brenda was driving, which is kind of interesting, and I reflected on it. We were talking about it over the weekend with my kids. I reflected on it a little bit, and I think I was able to rest when she was driving because I trusted her and I knew that she was going to pay attention and not fall asleep at the wheel. I never even thought about that, and it was never a concern for me. And I think that's what God means about Sabbath for us. That we should understand that it's okay for us to rest from the troubles of life because God is the one who's at the wheel, and we can trust Him. He's not going to fall asleep. He's going to be diligent, and he's going to get us where we need to go. He's not going to get lost or anything like that. He knows where to go. He knows how to get there, and he's going to take us there. And when we come out of our rest, we're that much closer to our destination. And I think that that's kind of what the writer's talking about is today we enter into the rest of God. We can rest from our weariness. I don't think he's talking about when we die. I think he's talking about today. Like right now, I can enter into a place of rest and my soul can rest because I trust my Maker. And that's real Sabbath, when you can trust God for all of the things that are going on that normally keep us awake at night. We can just trust Him and say, He's good to me, and He's got this. And so I wanted to encourage you in your today is trust in God. Let your soul find some rest so that you're not in turmoil over the events or circumstances or the emotions or lack of emotions that you sometimes feel about things. Enter into God's rest. That's a promise that He has for believers, that we have the privileged honor of allowing our souls to find rest. What a great, encouraging word for us. So I hope that feeds you today and gives you an opportunity to have a great day and smile and let your soul get a little bit of rest. Enter into God's Sabbath. Thank you, and I'll see you.